Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the European Social Economy Mission's call info session. My name is Ramūnas Kuncaitis. I'm the head of sector of entrepreneurship and clusters, and I will be moderating this session. Before we start, there are some housekeeping rules which I would like you to remind to follow. First of all, your microphone and cameras are switched on by default, so you will not be able to show your video, and you are not able to ask the questions by microphone. The slides of the meeting will be available on the Info Day event page along with the recording. So after the session, we will upload everything there, and you will also receive the email informing you about that. We value your feedback very much. Therefore, the evaluation survey will be sent after the event. For all the questions, please use Slido. Either tap in your computer slido.com and then hashtag SMP. You will join the section which is specifically designed for this session, or just scan the QR code which is on your screen with your mobile device, and you will be redirected to the correct page again. You can ask the questions at any time. We will then answer them at the end of the session. In any case, all the questions that we have received will be grouped, and we will add them to the FAQs of this call. So today's agenda. Our colleague Alberto Licciardello, policy officer from DG GROW, will give you the background, policy context, and the scope of the call. Colleague Marta Nucci-Castellanos will inform you about the general information on the call for proposals, the timeline, the admissibility, eligibility, and submission and evaluation procedures. Colleague from REA with Central Validation Services will explain about the registration of participants, and our colleague Financial Officer Yana Dobiasova will explain you about the financial provisions of the call for proposals. After all the presentations, we will pick up all your questions, and we will, and then it will be the time to answer those questions. So, but the questions you can either start posting already now, but maybe it's better to listen to what colleagues have to say and only then ask questions if something will be still unclear. Let's go further. Alberto, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ramūnas. I hope you can see me and hear me. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. As anticipated by Ramūnas, my name is Alberto Licciardello. I work in DG GROW in the unit dealing with proximity, social economy, cultural and creative industries. In this info session on the social economy missions called resilience, which has a focus on resilience in particular of rural communities and rural areas. We will see in the presentation the policy background, the objectives of the call, the scope of the activities, and the results that we expect from this. The presentation will not provide additional information if we consider the call text, but I will try to make a policy, a picture of the policy background, which covers also the latest developments. We can go to the next. We can go to the next slide. First of all, the principles that inspired the call reflect broadly the priorities of the European Green Deal, which was launched at the beginning of this Commission mandate, and has the aim of making the EU the first climate neutral continent by 2050. This this document also stresses the important role of rural areas for achieving this objective. On the other hand, enterprises are at the core of EU industrial strategy. In March 2020, the Commission laid down the foundation of this strategy with an approach which is based on the concept, on the new concept of ecosystems. In particular, the strategy aims at supporting the twin transition, making Europe industry more competitive at global level, enhance the strategic autonomy of the continent. In May 21, there was an update of the industrial strategy also because of the impact of the pandemic crisis. And these updates of the industrial strategy further developed the ecosystem concept and identified basically the key ecosystems for Europe. Among those, there is also the proximity and social economy ecosystem, which is the one relevant for our call. And the update stressed the need to accelerate the twin transitions of all the industrial ecosystems. For this reason, during 2021, there was the launch of the transition pathway for the proximity and social economy ecosystem. This is, let's say, a process which has been undertaken with the social economy stakeholders, a long process which covered also last year, and it's still ongoing. It was a co-creation process with the aim to accelerate the twin transition in this ecosystem. There was a stakeholder consultation at the beginning of last year, and then 1 year ago, in November 2022, there was the launch of the implementation phase, which is now ongoing with a collection of pledges from social economy stakeholders. In between, there was the launch of the Social Economy Action Plan, which includes the concrete measures to help mobilize the potential of social economy in the industrial system, and also builds upon previous initiatives with focus on social economy, such as, for example, the 2011 Social Business Initiative or the Startup and Scale Up Initiative of 2016. What is particularly important for us, for our call, is the point 3.4 of the Social Economy Action Plan, which highlights the importance of enabling social entrepreneurs to develop innovative business practices and boost rural growth and competitiveness. This way, there is a link between the Social Economy Action Plan and also the goals of the long-term vision of rural areas, which is another initiative of the Commission, which has the vision of making rural areas by 2040 stronger, more connected, more resilient, more prosperous. We can go to the next slide. And here we can see the overall objectives. I separated here the broad objectives of the social economy missions in general, because as you might know, there were also some calls in the past for social economy missions, one in 2020, one in 2021. And all those calls actually share the same overall objectives, which namely is to accelerate the development and acknowledgement of the potential social economy via inter-regional learning and collaboration activities, and secondly, contribute to a European social community establishment and improvement, boosting innovation efforts, sustainable growth, and the creation of high-value jobs. The theme of this call, the call resilience, of course, is more specific, but in the past also there were thematic areas that were prioritized, and the same approach is also for this call resilience, because as we will see in the coming slides, there are some themes or thematic areas that have been identified. The general objective of the call resilience is in line with what we have said concerning the long-term vision for rural areas. In particular, is to boost the local social economic business, to make a rural Europe stronger, connected, resilient, and prosperous. And this general objective can be reached in a threefold approach: by boosting the development of social economy SMEs, which are active in the rural areas; by building a network of regional and local authorities which share converging priorities on social economy; and finally, by creating new opportunities at EU level for learning and collaboration. Next, please. We come here to the specific objectives of the call, and of course, you will see that these specific objectives in a way probably coincide with the scope of the activities of the projects that we will see in the coming slides. First of all, the specific objective is to take stock of main recommendation and good practices from previous projects carried out on the issue of social economy and support of resilience and of rural communities. These projects, for example, can have been funded by Horizon Europe or the Single Market Program, but also from other sources. And I can think about the European Agriculture Fund for Rural Development, for example. Secondly, we want to foster the creation of social economy networks and support stakeholders at regional and local level to boost resilience and the twin transition. We want to look at the existing social economy networks with the objective to improve the collaboration activities between them. We want to boost interregional learning between social economy stakeholders, both public and private. And finally, contribute to build a social economy community, which as an integral part of a sustainable European economic model. And the focus here is on rural community resiliences, and the method is the development of social entrepreneurship. We could also add as an additional specific objective the development of specific recommendation from the project, but this specific recommendation should be also replicable beyond the project themselves. Please, next slide. We see here the type of applicants that we have targeted with this call. We can say that there are, broadly speaking, two categories: the regional or local authorities or related entities that coordinate regional and local policies in the field of social economy, of course, within the countries of the Single Market Program. And the second category is those actors that can compose the territorial, what we call the territorial delegation, such as, for example, the social enterprises, cooperatives, business organizations, social economy organization, civil society organization, etc. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. We can also think about other entities, for example, research organization or universities. This can be part of the consortia or can be part of the territorial delegations as third parties. Next, please. So here we see the themes and the priorities. The call text basically elaborates on those thematic areas, which are listed here from 1 to 5. The first is building clusters of social innovation and ecological innovation in rural areas. The second is boosting green and digital transition through social economy in rural areas. Then we have the fostering of social entrepreneurship, including, for example, for sustainable agriculture and food systems. The fourth area is reinforcing education, training, and skills development activities with a focus on unemployed people in rural areas. And here, in particular, we want to address youth and women unemployment in rural areas. The fifth area is the quality of life in rural environment, and we think about the development of the new European Bauhaus concept in a rural environment. As I said, this list is not exhaustive, and there can be themes or areas proposed by the applicants which are not listed here. The only thing is that these areas of action should be in line with the core objective of boosting social economy businesses in rural environment. And I can say that any area which is coherent with the objectives of the call can be proposed, and there will be no difference in terms of assessment of the proposal if a theme proposed is considered relevant. Next, please, is the scope of the activities. The activities that have to be carried out by the project's consortia. The call text lists these 3 mandatory activities. The activity 1 is a kind of preliminary activity with an overview of existing projects and the collection of recommendations and good practices from this project. That can be at different level in terms of geographical scope. We can consider under activity 1 the existing material that can be collected from territories that have representation in the consortium, or also from local or regional levels that are beyond the geographical scope of the consortium. These examples, these good practices, will be the basis for the discussion during the mandatory workshops. But as I say, there is no need for this example to come exclusively from the consortium members of past or ongoing activities. Sorry. Activity 2 is the organization of minimum 3 transnational workshops and learning activities. There are some features that are highlighted in the call text. These activities must include a minimum of 15 traveling participants. These can be regional, local governments, authorities, or other social economic stakeholders. There is also the possibility to include in these workshops members of delegation which are not consortium members. In this case, they will be considered as third parties. And there is also the possibility to organize additional learning activities within the activity tool, peer-to-peer learnings, webinars, whatever is considered relevant by the applicant. For example, for the transfer of collected good practices from one territory to another, these are all activities that can be considered under this mandatory activity. And finally, activity 3 is the elaboration or collation of good practices and the development of recommendations for replication. These are the mandatory activity of the projects. Of course, here we do not consider the more, let's say, administrative activities, the reporting, the monitoring of impact, etc. These are things that will be done by the project coordinators anyway, but with this slide, we only cover the mandatory activity for the project core. The next slide elaborates a bit on the possible additional activities which are not mandatory. They are listed here. We consider here communication and awareness raising activities. We also have other activities to boost cooperation into regional learning or capacity building. Some mapping exercises can be also carried out, either to map specific needs of social economy enterprises in the territory or other relevant initiatives, mapping of good practices, mapping of providers, for example, of digital solution and new technologies that can be used at the territorial level. And as an additional one, we also have the elaboration of a specific local social economy action plan for the resilience of the rural community. And as for the other activities, here we can also have additional ones which can be elaborated by the applicants. Of course, they only have to be in line with the objectives of the call. Next, please. Yes, the call text does not identify any specific indicator for the activity 1, the collection of good practices. This can be done by the applicants in their proposal. Of course, it's not excluded. The indicators mentioned by the call text for activity 2 are listed here. It's the number of transnational missions organized, minimum 3 per project. The number of traveling participants, as I said before, 15 minimum per mission. Rural stakeholders involved, the number, the geographical and typology variety of these stakeholders. The number of interregional partnerships initiated by the project, the number of social economic businesses and SMEs that participated in the missions, and also the cross-fertilization with other industrial ecosystem, the number and the diversity of partners that were involved from other industrial ecosystems. For the activity 3, there are these 2 indicators mentioned in the call, the number and the quality of collected good practices, relevant to the project, of course, not from the activity one. And the number of recommendations for replication. The proposal needs to include also the target values and the quality standards for the proposed indicators. Next, please, and I think this is the last one. It's about the expected results and the potential impact of the call. With this call, we want to increase the quality of the employment and to tackle rural employment. This is one of the expected results. We want to support the green, social, and digital transition at rural level, support the resilience and sustainable rural business models based on social economy, boost the efficiency in the use of resources and facilitate the transition to a circular economy, ensure more community resilience and better living conditions for the rural population. And these expected results, these impacts should be also reported in the project report. A section, specific section of this final report should be devoted to the expected impact of the project, the replicability of the results. This is it from my side. Back to Ramunas for the rest of the agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alberto, for very thorough presentation and explaining us why this call was launched, what is so important, what issues the call has to tackle, and what is expected in the applications. So now let's go to the practical aspects. And I would like to ask Marta to give you information how to apply. Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ramunas. Thank you. Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Marta Nuche Castellanos, Project Advisor at ISMEA and the call coordinator. And I will give you a brief presentation on the more practical aspects of your application. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we start with the call basics. This you know already. The call title, as you can see here, is European Social Economy Missions. You can see there is a slight difference between what is more visible on the call page. This was amended, and you can see the amendment as well, but the code remains the same, the call content remains the same, so everything is good. You have the link to the call document as well here. The call budget is 1 million euros. The maximum grant per project is 250,000, and we aim at funding for projects. The project duration is either 18 or 24 months, and the start date is June 2024. We will go through the timeline in the next slide, and the electronic submission is via the Funding and Tenders portal. So the indicative call timeline, as you know, the call was published on the 5th of October, and now your key date to remember is the 7th of December. Is the deadline for the submission of your proposals. Then you have the estimated timeline for the evaluation period, which will be happening between December and February 2024. Then once the evaluation is over, the grant preparation for those who have been selected for funding, that will happen between March and May 2024, and the signature on project start in June 2024. As we said before, we have either 18 or 24 months projects, and the final reporting and payment will be either in November 2025 or May 2026. There's no interim payment here. There will be a payment at the beginning and at the end for the duration of this project. Next slide, please. Then, before going into the actual process of submission and evaluation, I will mention briefly the types of applicants, participants we have in this course. So first of all, the most important one are the beneficiaries. Those are the ones that receive EU funding for the tax execution and must be registered and validated in the participant register. I will not go into the registration and validation process because our colleague Radu will do a whole presentation on this later. Then we have affiliated entities, also very relevant. They are linked either legally or via capital to a beneficiary, but they do not sign the grant agreement. Nevertheless, they receive EU funding. They must also be registered and validated. And this is important to keep in mind, they do not count towards the minimum eligibility criteria of the consortium, as we will see later. Then we have associated partners that must also be registered, although they are not formal recipients of EU funding. Then subcontractors that have a limited part in the project, they must never be used for core tasks, such as project management, and the role is indicated, you must indicate it in your application form. And finally, we have the third parties giving in-kind contributions. Those are not formal recipients of EU funding. These 2 points below, you have to keep in mind as well. The proposals must be submitted by a consortium of applicants, and they must be beneficiaries, as we said, not affiliated entities. And then one applicant must be appointed as a coordinator of the consortium. In this case, and we received questions regarding this already, it doesn't matter which type of organization it is. In this case, it can be a private organization or a public organization as well. Yes, you have links there, but you will know better. You will know more about the registration and validation in the next presentation. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, now we go into the process. This is like a summary of what we will be discussing. First, we will touch upon admissibility. Then we will go to the eligibility process and criteria, mentioning exclusion, the capacity checks, both financial and operational, and finally the evaluation award. And now we can start with the next slide. First, admissibility requirements. The submission of your application must be done via the Funding and Tenders portal electronically. No other via of submitting will be accepted. So you cannot send it via email, you cannot send it by post, is exclusively via the Funding and Tenders portal submission system. It must be submitted before the deadline, which is on the 7th of December, 2023, 5 p.m. Central European Time. Your applications must be readable, accessible, and printable. In Part B, you will need to upload PDFs only, and you have to be careful. We will mention this again later with a detailed budget table, because you will have to convert it from Excel to PDF, and sometimes it's tricky. You have to make sure that all the data is there. Applications must also be complete, so you have to have your application form Part A that you will fill online. We will go into more detail later. And then the application form Part B, which has a template with a maximum of pages to be converted on PDF, and your annexes that we will mention later as well. You have more info on the submission process via the link on the online manual there. Next slide, please. So this is more focusing on the electronic submission. On the call page, you will see, if you scroll down, that you have the option of starting submission. And then once you get there, you have the Part A that we mentioned to be filled in online with all the administrative forms. It has 3 parts. First is the general information, including your proposal abstract and the declarations on behalf of the consortium partners. Then there's administrative data of the participating organizations. And the third point, and this is important, is a summarized budget for the proposal. You have to make sure that this summarized budget and the detailed budget table that you have to provide in the next Part B are consistent, that they have the same data. Because if there are discrepancies, this summarized budget table information will prevail over the detailed budget table. So just ensure that it's the same. Then if we go to Part B, those are templates that you will be able to download for the submission system. You have to complete them, turn them into a PDF, and re-upload them. The first part is the core of your proposal, actually, is the technical description. And it has a maximum of 50 pages. This is very important for you to respect, because we will not read further than these 50 pages of technical description, and they will not be counted for the evaluation. Then you have the annexes that for this call, we have 3 annexes. The detailed budget table that we already mentioned. You have also the template available in the submission system. Make sure that you say the correct file, which is written here below, as the detailed budget table SMP-COSME GFS 90. Then you have to submit as well a list of previous key projects for the last 4 years, and these you will have a template that is available as a section actually on application form part B. You will see it is easy to see. Then we have Annex 5, the consortium eligibility checklist, and this template you have to pay a bit of attention because it's available on ISMEA's page, not on the funding and tenders portal. You have to make sure that you download it and then you complete it. We will see it later as well. Next slide, please. And here is a screenshot actually of the submission of part B. You see there where you have to put the technical form, the application form that goes on part B, the detailed budget table. For this call, we will not ask you for the CVs or the annual activity reports. We have, as we mentioned, the list of previous projects, which are already included on the template in part B. And then on other annexes is where you have to put the consortium eligibility checklist, as mentioned. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. And this is again another screenshot of the consortium eligibility checklist available on ISMEA's page. You have to fill it in. It has two parts. The first part is section 1, the selection of the theme that you have to choose from. Alberto mentioned them already, so I will not go into further detail here. And then section 2, which is actually your eligibility checklist. Here you have to input the data of all the consortium partners and include it. Then you just convert it to PDF and upload it as we saw before. We can go to the next slide. Then we have the eligibility requirements. We go to eligibility now. We have covered all admissibility before. So we first have the applicants. Applicants, both beneficiaries and affiliated entities, must be legal entities, public or private bodies, and they must be established in an eligible country. You are encouraged to read thoroughly section 6 of the core document, in which everything is detailed, exceptions, etc. If you have any questions or issues, you can let us know, and we can go to the next slide. And now we come to the consortium, the eligibility requirements for the consortium. Then proposals must be submitted by a consortium of minimum 4 and up to around 10 applicants, beneficiaries, not affiliated entities, this is important, which complies with all following conditions. This number of minimum and maximum is recommended. I mean, the minimum is obligatory, as you will see with the details, and up to around 10 applicants is what is considered more reasonable for the size of this project. Very big consortiums and get a bit more difficult to manage, so we recommend this. But I mean, if you justify it in your proposal, it can still be considered. So now we go with the following conditions. We have 4 conditions for your consortium. Point A, we need you to have a consortium with at least 3 regional or local public governments that come from at least 3 different eligible countries. Then we have also on point B, at least 1 business-related organization. They can be an SME organization or association, social enterprise organization, chamber of commerce, etc., that are relevant for this call topic. On point C, we have additional applicants that can be other economic operators, such as network or umbrella organization, SME organizations, social economy organizations. You have all the list on the call text in the section 6. And then finally, point D, which is important, is each eligible applicant under points B and C in the consortium must be established in the same territory. So the same regional or local territory covered by the regional or local public administration that participates under point A. And there is only one exception, which is the case of participating network or umbrella organizations. For instance, if one of your partners in the consortium for these additional applicants is an umbrella organization that represents the interests of social economy businesses at European level and is based in Belgium, for instance, and for instance, in Brussels, you don't need to have a regional or public government from Belgium, from the Brussels region, included as well in the call. Hope this is clear. If not, we can go through it on the FAQs as well. We can go to the next slide. Then we come to the financial capacity checks. I will not go into a lot of detail on this because actually this is done later on in the process once the evaluation has been concluded, and during the grant agreement preparation process is when we do this. But this is for you to see. You can check the details on section 7 of the call document. This financial capacity check is only to establish that you have a stable and sufficient resources needed to successfully implement the project. Then you will be required to upload some documents to the participant register. But just to let you know, all organizations usually go through this financial capacity check with the exception of public authorities. And if your individual grant amount is not more than 60,000 euros. If you're interested, you can follow the link included on the slide to have more information on this financial capacity check and even do a self-assessment there. We can go to the next slide. Then we come to the operational capacity, also section 7 of the code document, and the exclusion, both included on the same section. Operational capacity is the know-how, qualifications, and resources needed to successfully implement the project. And this will be assessed under the quality award criterion. And if during the evaluation process is considered that you fulfill this quality award criterion, it means that you have enough operational capacity. Then for the exclusion, you can see all exclusion situations in section 7. You will be asked to complete a declaration on honor or as part A of your application, in which you confirm that you are not, you don't have any exclusion criteria. To put some examples, exclusion criteria are being involved in fraud or bankruptcy, but you can see all details on section 7 of the call document. We can go to the next slide. Finally, this is a bit of a repetition because Alberto touched upon this already, but those are the key mandatory elements. The project budget, 250,000 euros, project length, either 18 or 24 months. The mandatory activities that we have seen already, we have 3 mandatory activities here. Something that we haven't, I think we probably mentioned it before, on this call, you have the possibility of having financial support to third parties. You can check the details on sections 2 and 6 of the code document. As well, they can only be used to provide financial support for the travel, accommodation, and subsistence costs for third parties to participate in the transnational workshops foreseen in your project. But you can use, in this call, we leave it a bit open. We do have the option of using this financial support to third parties, or you can use purchase costs to do the same. And then the mandatory call indicators are all to be covered. You have 2, as Alberto mentioned, with a mandatory minimum to be achieved. We can go to the next slide. Then now we come to the evaluation procedure, and just to summarize it, proposals that pass admissibility and eligibility checks that we mentioned before will proceed with the evaluation based on the award criteria. This will be done through an evaluation committee that is assisted by an independent external group of experts, and they will assess all applications and create the ranking. And all proposals will be informed about the evaluation result through an evaluation result letter at the end of the evaluation period. Only successful proposals will be invited to the grant agreement preparation process, or GAP. The other ones will be put on a reserve list or rejected. And you have more details in section 8 of the code document. We can go to the next slide. Here is a summary of the award criteria and the thresholds. You can find it on section 9 of the call text. The award criteria are relevance, quality, and impact. Relevance is the clarity and consistency of the project, the objectives and planning, how they match the call priorities and objectives, etc. For the quality, you have 2 parts: the project design and implementation, which is the technical quality, logical links, etc. Then the project team and cooperation, so the quality and expertise of the consortium and the project team, their roles and contributions, etc. Then the impact is credibility, ambition, expected long-term impact, key performance indicators. You can find all the details on the call document. But this, I would like to underline, in this little box, you can see the minimum pass score. To be considered for funding, you will have to pass the individual criterion and the overall score as well. So you will have to be over 16 points for each criterion, but also to be over 70 for the whole overall score. Next slide. And then we are coming towards the end of my presentation, and I will provide you some tips and tricks for a successful proposal. We start with the very obvious. Just read carefully the call document and the FAQs that we publish on the call page. Then get to know in advance the templates, the annexes, familiarize yourself with them. We also encourage you to think like and write for the evaluator, focus on the award criteria and address it because you will be assessed against it. Then structure the info. You just have a 50-page limit for your technical proposal. So you have to be specific, be in scope, avoid long sentences, provide something that is reader friendly, that will help the evaluators. Then we encourage you to highlight what makes your project special. Just not only paraphrase what we put on the call, but just highlight your special idea. Then check the completeness of your proposal. Remember all annexes. In particular, do not forget Annex 5 because it's not located on the Funding and Tenders portal. Then submit early. Do not wait until the last minute. We never know what can happen, and it is very stressful, and it's better to submit before. We can go to the next slide. Then regarding the budget, it's better if you provide a detailed and complete budget that reflects all deliverables and that is also cost effective, that the budgetary items are necessary for the project execution. We also recommend to clearly describe the division of tasks and responsibilities between partners. And this is linked with the next point. Remember that if successful, you will need to execute your proposal in practice. During grant agreement preparation, there are no further improvements that can be made. So the division of tasks will help you a lot, not only on the submission and evaluation phase, but also if you are granted funding to make the implementation seamless and easier. Then set ambitious but realistic goals. And we go to the last slide of my presentation. You have some resources here to find a partner and build your consortium through the partner search database on the Funding and Tenders portal. We also propose the Enterprise Europe Network Operation Opportunities database. Then you make sure that you include partners only upon their consent. Make sure that this is the case, that everybody is on board with your application. If you have the chance, consult experienced or former applicants. And then to get support from us for IT-related issues, check with the IT help desk. This support part is on section 12 of the call document as well. You have the online manual for applying, and then you have our functional mailbox for non-IT related questions. But please remember to submit your question by the 30th of November. All replies will be published on the FAQ, as we will do with the questions that we get on this info session. And that is all on my side. I look forward to your questions later. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marta, for explaining how to apply. Before we go to the next presentation, I would like to remind participants how to ask the questions. So let's keep it for a few moments for the participants to be able to connect to Slido. I'm sure that you have some questions. If not, then it means that we are very clear and everything is correct. But let's have the slide for a few moments more in order for you to be to have an opportunity to connect to the relevant section of Slido and to be able to ask questions. Okay, I hope everyone had the chance to connect to Slido. If not, we will show the slide after other presentations as well. So let's move on to the presentation of Radu, where he will explain what to do if you are applying for the first time. Because if you have already applied, you have done this step. But if you haven't done it, Radu will now show you how to do it the right way. Radu, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Ramonas. I will try to keep the same rhythm as Marta before. So let's start with the next slide. I will briefly explain. I don't see the slide very well. I don't know if there is a technical issue. Okay. So what I'm going to cover today, maybe the easiest part of the session, the registration of your organization. I will show you a few slides from the funding and tender portal, explain you a bit what you need to do, briefly cover the central validation service, all the services that we are taking care of and that could come to you at a certain moment in time. Communication, this is very key, and I will share guidance documents. Let's go to the next slide, Maria. So, registration of your organization. If you are at proposal stage now, there are two type of scenarios, I would say. The first one, what the portal will ask you to do is to search if your organization is already registered. And if you do this search, you may find already your organization registered with a status that could be declared or valid. It's not relevant at this stage, but if you find your organization, you can already use the PIC registered in the system. So you can reuse the data already created by one of your colleagues and use the PIC number in order to submit your proposal. If it's not the case, then you go to the next scenario, you register your organization from scratch. And this takes 5 to 7 minutes. It's a very easy process. I will explain in the next slide a few details that you need to have next to you at the moment of registration. Maria, if you can go to the next slide. How to register your organization, the participant register. I would advise you to have next to you certain important details about your organization. Of course, the legal name, I'm sure you will know it, registration country as well. But what is also interesting to know for us is the registration number and the VAT number and other sort of data that we will check at the later stage during the validation process. At the end of the registration process, and that's very important, you will receive the famous participant identification code. The abbreviation that we commonly use is called PIC, and this is what you will obtain at the end of the registration. And you will obtain this PIC number with a status that is called declared. It's declared because at this stage, all the information that you declared in the system is not yet checked by the central validation service. This comes at a later stage. We can move to the next slide. The validation process overview. So let's say that we completed the registration already. What could come next? I see this green, gray, no, it's gone, thanks. Once you completed the registration, what could come next is the legal validation, the legal appointment and the financial capacity assessment. Today, I'm not going to cover the LIR and the FCA. I'm going to briefly explain the legal validation, what documents you need to submit. What is important is how we are going to communicate and what will happen after the registration, what will be the relation with the central validation service, depending on the role you have. Let's go to the next slide. So, REA central validation services, we perform based on the PIC number. So, in relation with your registration, we perform the verification of the legal existence and the legal status of entities. We also validate in parallel the appointment of the legal entity appointed representative. We validate changes, so we do maintenance of our database. We assess universal takeovers. We create legal entities and bank account files that are also important for you at a certain moment. We prepare the financial capacity assessment. We perform ownership control analysis for specific programs not applicable today. We also perform ex post status verification. These are all in relation with your PIC identification, with your PIC account. Let's move to the next slide. The biggest advantage of the legal validation, I would say, is that we only check the data once. Once you register, once you will be successful in your project, we will validate the data. And of course, the usability is there. It means that every time you will need to submit another proposal, you will reuse the same PIC that was validated in the past. This is one of the biggest advantages of the system. What is important to maintain the usability is to help us maintain the data in our database. It means to communicate to us any changes that need to be validated at a certain moment, if applicable, of course. Let's move to the next slide to explain how we do the validation. The validation is always performed on the basis of supporting documents and in accordance with EU financial regulation and our set of rules. You have the link in the slide. I advise you to check them at a certain moment. Maybe it's too early to do it now, but it's good to save this link and check after registration how we interpret the rules on legal entity validation, legal appointment, and financial capacity assessment. Validation is required for all beneficiaries and affiliated entities. It means associated partners are not concerned. Let's go to the next slide. What type of documents we may request from you once we start the validation process? We have the legal entity form. This is a template you need to complete. You need to sign it and stamp it. We have the VAT extract for private entities, registration extract, not older than 6 months. We are working on increasing this deadline of 6 months that I find a bit too short. We will try to move it to 1 month. Very soon, we are requesting law decree decision for public law bodies, the treaty if you are an international organization, and of course for non-profit organization, we are really looking forward to see the statutes. For creation of a bank account, we have a financial identification form that is very similar to the template used for the legal entity form, and this will be available in the portal. Let's go to the next slide. Communication. Communication is key for us, and compared to other services, we don't have a functional mailbox for you to reply. We rely on the portal and the communication that happens with your PIC account, via your PIC account. Once we request documents, you will receive a notification from us. This is a sample how it looks like, how our messages look like. Be careful and check your account in order to receive, to keep in touch with us and respond in case we are requesting documents as soon as possible. You will receive a notification by email as well, so it's not only in your portal. If you receive a notification, go to the portal, check the message, see what is needed to be done on your side. Let's go to the next slide. As I said, communication is very important, but what are we going to do if this channel is lost on our side? There are 2 scenarios and there are 2 different solutions that I will try to describe today. If you have a PIC that was declared non-valid PIC, let's say, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, you are reusing a PIC already created in the past, but you don't have access to it. Colleagues in the organization lost the access, lost the password. What are we going to do? It's very easy. You just need to create a new one. Once you create a new one, you inform us and you declare that the old PIC is lost. Nobody has access to it. We will link them, and then your new PIC will appear in the system, in the project, will take over the responsibilities. What happens if you are using a valid PIC and then the person who is appointed as liaison, so the official contact validated by the Central Validation Service, is no longer there, is not available anymore for several reasons. Maybe it left the organization and there are no backups, there are no account administrator. For this scenario, there is what we call a LIA recovery procedure. You have the link in the slide. There is a link in the portal that helps you reinitiate the communication with us and regenerate the documents for the LIA point. This way, we will validate again the LIA, and you will be able to continue using and accessing your valid PIC, appointing roles in the system, etc. Next slide, guidance documents. I'm sharing again the rules on legal validation, a link on the online manual on how to register. the online manual, and then you have legal notice on the funding and tender portal, terms and conditions and data protection. That's it on my side. I'm looking forward to hear your questions on the process.
Thank you, Rado, very much about explaining what to do with the PIC, especially in those cases when the PIC is lost. From practice, we are getting a lot of such situations, so it's very important to follow the procedure, and then it's very easy to regain the access to the PIC again. It's also very important not to invent several PICs of the same organization, because then the validation will have to merge them in any case, as the idea is that one PIC is always used as one unique in our database. So that's important message which we want to pass to you. So thanks a lot. Before we go to the next presentation, let's go again to the slide. Just to have yet another opportunity for those who have not yet asked the questions to see where to ask the questions. The questions are coming. Thanks a lot for them. So let's use a few moments to remind where to ask the questions. So you either go to slido.com and there you type SMP, capital or small letters, doesn't matter. Both are accepted, and then you will get to the section which is allocated to this specific session. Or with your mobile device, you just scan the QR code which is on the screen, and you will also be redirected to the same section. We will answer those questions after the next presentation. The only thing which questions we will not be answering very specific on very specific situations, because we cannot provide such service to all applicants. So therefore we will not be commenting on a specific situation of one organization. Usually we are getting question, my organization is X, we are doing this, are we eligible? So for such type of questions we will not be able to answer, because then it would be not possible for us to provide such service to everyone else. So I hope everyone who wanted to ask the question already have their means, and then we are switching to the next presentation. And I would like to ask our colleague Jana to introduce us to the financial aspects of the application. Jana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ramonas. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Jana Dubiasheva, as introduced before. I'm a financial officer in ASME, and I will present the financial provisions applicable to this call. Next slide, please. So firstly, as also briefly mentioned by Marta before, the financial documents that are necessary for the submission are two documents, which is the summarized budget table and the detailed budget table. Normally, first you will have to prepare your detailed budget table following the Excel template available in Part B of the application. And this is a mandatory annex, again, as mentioned by Marta, and has to be uploaded as part of your proposal. And then you will finalize the summarized budget table from Part A online directly. Please note, as this was also specified by Marta, that the amounts entered into the summarized table and the detailed budget table need to correspond, because otherwise, in case of discrepancies, the summarized table will prevail. Next slide, please. So the detailed budget template is an Excel document that explains. Basically, there are 5 sheets, and you will have to only submit sheets 3, 4, and 5. There is an introduction sheet 1, and then sheet 2, which is start, as you can see on the print screen, where you only need to introduce your work packages, and then you click next, and then you will be filling sheets 3. Then 4 is generated automatically, and sheet 5 then should be submitted as sheet 5 is then filled in by coordinator, and then they are submitted as one merged document, as Marta also mentioned, and this will need to be a PDF in this case. Next slide, please. I will go into details of each of the sheets and what you need to fill in. So as regards sheet 3, this detailed table, you will have to present one complete detailed budget table per each participant, and if there are affiliated entities, also for affiliated entities. The budget should be based really on detailed, reasonable, and accurate estimates as far as possible. This detailed table is broken down by cost category and work packages. And for technical reasons, just for you to know, the number of work packages has to be the same in all cost categories. But in case you don't have cost to enter, you just leave it blank. There is no problem. Next slide, please. The other two sheets that you will need to submit to us are sheet 4 and 5. So sheet 4 is consolidated table per participant. This table is calculated automatically by the system. And again, sheet 3 and 4 are per participant. I'm repeating this so that you get a little bit the idea that, for example, if you have a consortium of 5 participants, you will need to have 5 detailed tables and 5 consolidated tables in the merged PDF. And then this will be followed by a consolidated table per project, which is this sheet 5. And this one needs to be assembled manually by the coordinator. And of course, must match again the financial data that is entered either automatically or manually in any other part of your application. Next slide, please. So the detailed budget table per beneficiary, as I said, is broken down by work package and cost category. The budget has to be in balance, so meaning that the project's costs need to equal the project income. Here I'm just simply listing what the project costs and project income mean in this case. So project costs are personal costs, subcontracting costs, purchased costs. Then there are other cost categories and indirect costs. And when we speak about project income, we speak about the EU contribution, revenues and contributions by third parties and beneficiaries' own resources. I will explain a bit what can be included in each of the categories. Next slide, please. So the first category is personnel costs. Personnel costs are just divided into 4 subcategories. So the first subcategory are costs for employees, which are eligible as personnel costs if they fulfill the general eligibility conditions. And these costs need to be related to personnel working for the beneficiary under an employment contract. And the personnel needs to be assigned directly to the action. Normally, the calculation method for the remuneration is the daily rate of the person multiplied by the number of day equivalents that are actually worked on the action as per the timesheet that you will be keeping. You just need to keep in mind that there is a horizontal ceiling of 215 working days, and no more days can be declared, basically. Then the next category of personnel is natural persons working under a direct contract other than employment contract. So these can be, for example, freelancers or experts. These costs are eligible in case the personnel works under very similar conditions as employees, which means, for example, same office rules apply to the person, same supervision rules apply to the person. The remuneration costs should not be significantly different from those of employees performing similar tasks. The work results of these staff members belong to the beneficiary directly, and the cost declared amounts solely to the remuneration plus taxation costs for the person in question. Next slide, please. The next personnel cost category are SME owners and natural persons without salary. So SME owners, you have to keep in mind that these have to really be direct owners or co-owners of the beneficiary, and have to basically their rates are calculated differently than those of the previous categories, because a specific rate multiplied by a relevant country specific correction coefficient applies. For this particular cost category, in case you would like to budget such costs, you will need to provide us with the name and the unit cost you are applying, and we need to be able to verify that this is actually an owner or co-owner. So the name needs to appear in the registration documents of the SME, and the beneficiary, of course, needs to be also set up as SME in the system. I realized that can we go one slide back? I realized that I did not specify, thank you, the seconded personnel. So in terms of seconded personnel, this means that this is a transfer of personnel from a third party to the beneficiary. When the seconded person is still paid and employed by the third party, but works for the beneficiary and is at the disposal of the beneficiary. It's important to keep in mind that the secondment contracts need to follow the applicable national legislation. Thank you. We can go to the next slide. And the next. Thank you. So this is just for you to see what the personnel costs look like in the detailed budget table. You must fill in monthly rates for each person who will work on the action. Please keep in mind that the estimated costs should be based on historical data and need to correspond to what appears on the payroll. We scrutinize this in sense that if something seems a bit odd, we might ask you to provide a bit of evidence of calculation of these rates, even if it's just estimates. For categories A1 to A3, you will need to select a staff category from the drop-down list, as it is highlighted on the print screen. Then you will indicate the monthly rate for each person and the month equivalent to be worked on the project. And as mentioned before, for the SME owners, this is calculated a little bit differently. So also in the detailed budget table, it appears a little bit differently. And you are indicating actual daily rates and the number of days worked on the action, which again cannot be more than 215 days per year per SME owner. We also ask you to fill in the last two columns of the detailed budget table. The more important is the description of the project task, which can be copied from the narrative part B. You can see it on the next slide. So we're not asking you to invent anything new for the detailed budget table. It can be copied from here. It is just important for us to be able to match these together. If you don't provide the details at the proposal stage, you will anyway have to provide them later on. We will definitely ask for this. Next slide, please. The next cost category that is eligible under this call is subcontracting, which basically serves to purchase of goods, works, and services related to the implementation of specific tasks, which are part of the action. The subcontractor in this case works without the direct supervision of the beneficiary, as opposed to, for example, in-house consultants. We need to always keep in mind that only a limited part of the action can be subcontracted. For example, no core tasks of the coordinator or project management tasks. These cannot be subcontracted. You will always need to ensure the best value for money, if appropriate, the lowest price, and the cost reported under this cost category must follow a completed selection procedure in compliance with your internal procurement rules. And obviously, you will need to avoid any conflict of interest. Also note that if subcontracting costs are budgeted in more than 30%, as more than 30% of the total eligible costs, you will need to provide an explanation for this normally in the technical part. In the detailed budget table, you will need to provide the name of the item, the foreseen cost, as well as a short description of the subcontracted project activities. Again, as before, the description can be copied from the narrative part B, and note that the costs need to be budgeted in Annex 2. So basically, from what I am saying, subcontracting details appear in 3 places, and they really need to match each other, which is of course the case for all the budgetary items normally. But as I said again, we will come back to you if this is not the case. So it's better to keep in mind that wherever you have the same cost category across the different documents in your application, make sure that somebody makes the check to see that all the information matches and the amounts match, etc. Next slide, please. So this is again just to show you that this is the mirroring table in the technical description Annex 1 Part B. And again, the descriptions can be copied from here to the detailed budget table. You do not need to invent anything new. Next slide, please. The next cost category is purchased cost. So purchase contracts are contracts that to get services, works, and goods that do not cover the implementation of the action, but their purchase is actually necessary to carry out the action. These can be, for example, purchases of equipment and consumables, but also travel costs fall under this category of costs. Normally, these do not fall under any other category. So it is always good to make sure that you do not mix up, for example, subcontracting and purchase costs. And as opposed to subcontracting costs, for example, these do not have to be also indicated in Annex 1. Next slide, please. So as I said, there are 3 subcategories, and I will start with the travel, accommodation, and subsistence costs. The eligibility rules here are that travel costs can only be budgeted for personnel that actually works on the action. It has to be reasonably justified costs. And the most important at this moment is that they must be budgeted as unit cost. So here I would recommend you, as Marta did as well, to start familiarizing yourself a little bit with the documents and the templates. You do not need to invent any amounts coming from thin air for travel costs, but you really need to look at the unit costs as predefined by the linked Commission decision. In practice, this means that for travels as such, for travel costs, you make these calculations based on the distance between the departure, which is generally the place of employment, and the arrival point, which both need to be very specific. So if your place of employment is, for example, Lisbon, and where you're traveling is Madrid, then you really calculate your unit cost from Lisbon to Madrid. And there is a flight calculator / rail calculator available to you, which is also linked on the slide, which will help you to determine the applicable unit cost. You need to understand that when you're calculating the distance, it is calculated for one way. However, the unit cost is applicable per return trip. So you do not multiply the unit cost. It already applies to a return trip. In terms of accommodation, how we calculate accommodation cost is that 1 unit is 1 night, and subsistence cost in this case, 24-hour period is 1 unit, and rates for both accommodation and subsistence cost are fixed per each country, and they are again available in the Commission decision. The unit cost rates are also to be found in Annex 2A, normally to the grant agreement. And maybe here it's good to say that we understand that these are only estimates, that you do not necessarily know exactly where you will travel and so on. Just think of the most plausible destinations, or in your case, the most plausible furthest destination can also be an option in terms of the budget, etc. You need to provide specific information, but we understand that this will change. It can also change between the proposal and the gap stage, and then it will change between the gap stage and the reporting stage. But we just need to make sure that you're correctly applying the rates and understanding the principle. Here, it's also important to say that I said travel cost must be budgeted as unit cost, but there is also instances where they will be budgeted as actual costs, and that's for particular travel situations that are not covered by the Commission decision, which can, for example, be a specific country that is not listed in the Commission decision, or travels that are of distance below 50 kilometers or similar. That's specific to your situation. And of course, if you have questions, you can always contact us. Next slide, please. So this is what travel costs look like in the detailed budget table again. So you will have to use the respective columns for either unit cost or actual cost, and to pay attention to which one you are using where. Regardless of which ones you need to use for your travel instance, it is again important to provide the calculation details in the description column. In this case, it's really important that the details appear as per what the description column suggests. So, for example, you make you tell us the place of departure, the destination, the number of days, the number of persons traveling, the means of transport, etc. Because we need to be able to verify the applied rates. Next slide, please. The next cost category is equipment. So purchases of equipment used for the action must be declared as depreciation costs. These are calculated on the basis of the costs actually incurred and written off in accordance with international accounting standards or the beneficiary's usual accounting practices. Only the portion of the costs that corresponds to the rate of actual use for the action during the action duration can be taken into account. It's also good to note that equipment can also be rented or leased. There is a specific box in the detailed budget table for that as well. But in this case, the costs cannot exceed the depreciation costs of similar equipment and should not include any financing fees. Here, I would also like to mention that normally computers, softwares, or for example, printers are purchase costs that are accepted only if they are necessary to implement the specific very technical tasks and are duly justified. Otherwise, these costs are normally covered under indirect cost category that I will explain later. Next slide, please. So other costs are basically purchases of other goods, works, and services that must be calculated on the basis of the costs actually incurred. And these are always direct costs, and procurement principles apply here as well. These need to be purchased specifically for the implementation of the action. And here, as there are several lines, it's good to make sure that the items are always listed in the correct category, and it is again good to provide detailed information because whenever something is not clear, we will come back to you and ask questions. So, for example, if you are listing items under consumables, it is always good to really list items, not just put, consumables basically, which is already the name of the line, but it happens to us. So we would like to see what kind of consumables, for example, you have in mind. Next slide, please. The next cost category is financial support to third parties, as mentioned by Marta as well. Here, I would just like to mention that the maximum amount of direct financial support to each individual third party is limited to 60,000 euro. These costs must be part of the project costs and are included under the corresponding cost heading. And in this particular call, they are budgeted as actual costs. And again, you see on the print screen what it looks like in the detailed budget table. Next slide, please. The last category of costs are indirect costs, as I said. So these are running or operating costs. We call them overheads as well. And as I said, the example can come, for example, be computers or stationery or rent of the office. You should understand this as costs that are not directly linked to the action implementation and are not attributed directly to the action. There's no need for breakdown of these costs as they are reimbursed basically as the flat rate of 7% of the eligible direct costs. Maybe I will just mention that it is also good to keep in mind that indirect costs can never be covered for the same grant by both real costs reimbursement and flat rate. So here we really need to make sure that there's no double funding. We can go to project income. Thank you. So project income, following each detailed budget table, you also have per participant, you also have a green project income table, which is covering, as I said before, the EU contribution. It is covering the income generated by the action, financial contributions from third parties, or if or where applicable, own resources of the beneficiaries. Normally, the remaining amount will be the own resources or the contribution of the beneficiary. Here, it is only important to say that in your call, the FSTP, so the financial support to third parties, is funded at 100%, whereas all the other cost categories are funded at 90%. Next slide, please. The last slide I have here are the payment arrangements. So normally after the grant agreement signature, you would receive a pre-financing float of 70%. To start working on the project. And as you can see on the slide, this is an automatic process. There's no interim payment planned for projects under this call. And there is one final technical and financial report, which is then linked to the request for the payment of the balance. And this can lead, of course, to additional payment or recovery depending on the progress of the project. It's important to know that all payments are done to the coordinator, so they are sent to the coordinator's bank account, and the coordinator must distribute the payments received from the granting authority to the other beneficiaries without any unjustified delay. So that is all from me. Thank you very much and good luck with your proposals.
Thank you, Jana, for explaining us the financial aspect of the call. These were the all presentations that we had. And now we can switch to the question and answer session. As I mentioned before, all the questions can be asked using Slido. Now you see on your screen again how to join the Slido, and you see also the questions that we have received. So the first question, good morning. Thank you very much for this information session. Here is my question. How do you define rural stakeholder? Alberto, maybe you can give some tip?
Yes. What I can say is that, as far as I know, a definition of rural stakeholder doesn't exist. I mean, it's not a legally binding definition. As an example, for example, in Italy, I would mention those communities, for example, in rural areas, in mountains, which is called Comunità Montane in Italy. There is a question also on this. It's a public rural stakeholder, but I mean, it's not defined as a public rural stakeholder. It's a Comunità Montana, and it's obviously relevant for this project. I don't know in other countries, but this could be elaborated in the proposal. If a rural stakeholder is included, then the proposal should elaborate why this is relevant for social economy and also for rural communities.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, in your proposal, you need to prove that you use this term rural stakeholder the right way.
I would say that as a general remark, we didn't want to include a legal definition in the call text by purpose or on purpose, because we didn't want to exclude some entities, but the proposal should be consistent and should explain why, for example, a social economy enterprise is such. Why do they define themselves as a social economy entity? This is relevant, for example, for the second question. Social economy SMEs, there is also no legal definition for social economy SMEs, but the core of the activities of this SME should be relating to social economy activities, social innovation, or social economy.
Okay, so basically, also for the social economy SMEs, the applicants need to prove it in the application that their scope is also for social economy.
The core of the business of the SMEs, not exclusively, of course, but the core or a substantial part of their economic activities is social.
Okay, thank you very much. For the next question, are eligible event managing authorities? I would like to ask the author to clarify what do you mean? Because for me it's difficult to understand what is behind
the managing authorities. I don't see why they shouldn't be eligible in principle, but maybe they can elaborate a bit more.
Okay, thank you.
As a public authorities, of course.
Colleague from DSS Network is asking, can you give the exact definition of social enterprise organization as business-related organization? What is the difference with social economy organizations listed in other? I think Alberto already answered to this question.
Yes, partly yes. I think enterprise, of course, must be an legally established enterprise. Organizations, social economic organization cannot be, might not be enterprises. That's the big difference. But apart from that, I don't see. I mean, the relevance of these entities for social economy must be clear in the proposal.
And that's why in the list of eligible organizations, there is other mention, because we didn't want to be restrictive. We wanted that the applicants would show the need for such type of project, the need for such support to the rural communities, to the rural areas. Okay, thanks a lot. Again, question from Dorothea Daniela. Can the 15-20 traveling participants come from non-partner countries? In principle, yes, but those countries must be SMP countries because the program is to support SMP countries. So you don't need to have all your participants countries in the partnership because the partnership has some restrictions. But the participants cannot come from the countries which are not participating in the SMP. Applicants in the consortium must be established in the same territory. Is territory defined as NUTS 2 region? Is Latvia considered one territory by that logic? Here, I would like to ask participants to read everything until the end, because I suppose you are referring to the eligibility condition where we speak about the regional and local public governments. And we also say that each eligible applicant under B and C in the consortium must be established in the same territory covered by the regional or local public administration participating as applicant under A. So the whole sentence matters. You need to read until the end because the territory must be covered by the competence of the regional or local public administration. So if this territory is covered by the legal or regional organization, that's okay. Otherwise, it's not okay. So read, please, all the sentences until the end because every word matters. Next one. Could you please clarify the role of affiliated entities? Marta.
Yes, so I think this question is also related to a next question, to a following question by the same author. But I mean, I think that probably wasn't very clear before, but affiliated entities are those that already have a legal or capital link to the beneficiary, which is neither limited to the action nor established for the sole purpose of its implementation. I mean, some examples can be permanent legal structures like relationships between an association and its members, or contractual cooperation not limited to the action, for instance, collaboration agreement for research on a particular field. And another example is a capital link, so direct or indirect control of the beneficiary. There's more details there, but for instance, parent companies or holdings and their daughter companies or subsidiaries and vice versa, those are affiliated entities. But also you can see the case of the affiliates between themselves, like those are controlled by the same entity and they are affiliated below it. So it has to have also, as I said, this permanent legal or capital link to the beneficiary. It cannot be done solely for the purpose of the application to the call. I hope that this clarifies your question, and I think it clarifies the below question too.
Okay, thank you, Marta. Basically, you explained what should be the link. The role in the project, the beneficiaries, the applicants need to define themselves. We don't prescribe what affiliated entities can do and what normal partners can do. It's really up to the partnership to define what each of them will be doing. Is there a partner idea search facility? I think in Marta's slides, one of the last ones, there was a link to the partner search, right?
Yes, there is a link to the partner search, not to idea search, as far as I'm aware of, is only the partner search.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to go to once the presentation is published, you can go via the link and check it.
Okay, thank you. Is an entrepreneurially oriented NGO that has valuable experience for the project, but doesn't operate at the same territory as the local government eligible? No, a priori, because the call says that every organization which is not public authority has to be in the territory covered by that public authority. So if the NGO is in that territory which is covered by of the public authority, fine, but otherwise, no.
Yes, unless you are an umbrella organization, which is not the case here. So
yes, if it is
yeah.
local NGO, no. But if it is umbrella organization, yes. Okay, thank you. Next question. We are an European project office that gives support to the regional public authorities. Could we apply as affiliated entity? I think Marta answered affiliation question. And can you apply or not? It's really up to the design of the project. If you will prove that your participation is necessary, no problem. Alberto, next question is for you. Are associations of municipalities eligible as local authorities? In rural areas, more municipalities are often part of Comunità Montana or similar.
Yes, I think I replied already. For me, it's perfectly eligible.
If they are legal entity, I suppose, because the association must be legal entity and should have a
I guess
local
that's the
authority
case
role.
in Italy. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next one. One business-related organization, such as SME organization, can under this be a private enterprise that works with SMEs and social projects. So you took part B from the eligibility, and the question is, can under this be a private enterprise that works with SMEs and social projects? I think we don't distinguish whether it should be public or private. For us, the most important thing is that, as Alberto was mentioning, the core activity is social entrepreneurship, right? So
Yes.
It doesn't matter public or private. The main point is core activity is social entrepreneurship, social economy.
Yes.
Next, travel costs for third parties, FSTP budget item must be budgeted as unit cost like personal working on the action, right? Jana, I think you answered it in your presentation, but could you please repeat again just to be clear?
Yes,
How...
I understand this could be confusing, but no, the budget under FSTP is budgeted as actual costs, even though it's also for travel costs.
Okay, thank you. Alberto, can you help us with the next question? What is the European definition of rural zones?
I'm not sure about rural zones, but rural areas, the reference document is the long-term vision for rural areas. So I would say that that's the reference. Definition of rural zones, I don't think it exists. And I don't think it's even relevant for the core. I don't understand why this should be defined.
Okay, so for us, okay, clear. Thank you. If we have not answered the question, please clarify it again. Otherwise, send us the email and we will put it in the FAQs. Next question: is it okay that consortium is made from 3 public authorities and 1 social enterprise? Also, is a state university eligible as public authority? We had the situations before where some countries are claiming that state universities are public authorities. For us, it's not, because it's not a local government. If the public university is acting as a local government, a governmental body that has governmental powers, could be, but I don't recall any country which is doing that. So the state university is not qualifying as public authority, though it is public organization. And the other part of the question, as I mentioned before, we cannot provide guidance for everyone on the specific composition of the consortium. So it's up to you to read the eligibility criteria and to see which organizations you want to choose and how those organizations are actually fulfilling the eligibility criteria. And I think those are, oh, we have more. Organizations established in the same territory is not equal to organizations covering the territory. Can an organization covering a small municipality be based in another city, regional capital? For the eligibility purpose, we will be checking that the organization is established in the territory of the public authority. Because otherwise, it's impossible to have an equal treatment of everyone. So what we do, we will check whether the organization is established in the territory as covered by the public authority. I hope I answered the question. Looks like the info session went very quick, but very clear. We don't have any more questions. Therefore, I would like to ask very much to the colleagues for your contributions. I would like also to ask all the colleagues who were behind for your support and helping to organize this session. Thank you for all attendees, everyone who was listening to this info session. I hope you found it useful. If you still have any questions, please send them to the email which is indicated in the screen right now. This email address is also in the call text. So please send them, and then we will, in any case, from all the questions that we have received today during the info session, we will make FAQs, and in coming days, the answers will appear in the FAQ section of the call. So thank you everyone for your contribution, for your presentations, for your listening, for asking the questions, and I would like to wish you all very nice day.
Thank you.
Good luck with applications.
Good luck. Thank you.
Good luck, everyone. Bye.